everybody, John here with Luxe Auto Concepts. Today I'm going to show you how to install the mid stealth tint on this Jeep Trailhawk here. This is going to be a universal kit, so we're not installing a pre-cut kit for this vehicle. You can do this just by buying yardage of our film, whether you buy it through a distributor or you buy it through our website. We do have the Universal Tint Kits on there as well. I'm going to show you how to measure out the light. We're going to talk about the tools that you're going to want to use, tips and tricks on how to do this type of light where it's bulging out of the car. We have a little bit of body in our way here. They're going to have to stretch around, but we're going to be able to do this light in two pieces. Looking at this, I'm estimating that we're going to use about 1.5 yards of film in total, but we're going to get to that here in a few minutes. So let's talk about different things that we're going to need before we start this installation. As far as tools, one of the things we're going to need is a breakaway knife. This is the Luxe Pro knife that we sell on our website. It's a stainless steel body. It's got a 30-degree blade like most professional wrappers use, and a lockout. So we do have this available. We also have a very inexpensive plastic blade if you're looking for a more economic option. And then this is an NT cutter, also 30-degree. You'll find most wrappers are using blades that are very sharp. Helps us get in between these body lines and make curves very easy. So these are the two knives that we're going to be using. Nice. The other very important tool is a squeegee. This is the Luxe squeegee with a suede buffer on one side. It's a little bit miniature. It's going to work just fine for this light. This is a normal size squeegee, also with a suede buffer on one end. We sell both of these. We do sell the suede buffers as well. Suede buffer is going to help the squeegee glide along the film. Now, because we are installing the stealth film and it's pretty smooth looking, not gloss, the squeegee does slide pretty well against it, but it is so much easier with this fabric side. The other thing that I'm going to use during this install, and I use in almost every one of my installs, is a wrap glove. This is a USA wrap glove. The standard wrap glove is yellow. We sell them in all sizes on our website. I highly recommend if you're going to do any wrap projects, any vinyl projects, you buy this tool. God gave you a great squeegee. It's right here attached to your body. This will help you use it properly. It's the exact same theory as putting this suede buffer here. Helps your hand glide against the light. Let's see. Another tool that we're going to need for this job, specifically because this body bulges out, is some painter's tape. Painter's tape, when we put it over the body of the vehicle, just like this, it's going to lower the surface energy so the vinyl doesn't stick to this. Because we don't want the vinyl to hit the paint of the vehicle when we're trying to tint the light. It's only going to cause tension in places we don't want, and it's going to make the install more difficult. So just by taking this tape and taking out this body line right here, it looks like I'm going really far away from the light. Typically I wouldn't do that, but it's because the bulge starts way down here. And now I'm going to take this and go right close to the light. That's going to help me slide that film right up there and get a perfect all-around tint. Now, that is the only place on this vehicle that I see that I need to tape up. And then the last tool that you could use, and we may use it here, are micro squeegees. We do sell these on our website as well. These are very, very handy when you get around corners and you're trying to tuck vinyl very, very deep. So that's what we're going to use these tools for. You may need them sometimes, you don't need them others, so I just have them standing by in case we do need to grab. All right, so now that we've talked about the tools, we're going to talk about what techniques we're going to use to wrap this light. This is a bulbous light, so it's sticking out from the vehicle. We do have a complex curve right here, meaning that we have a curve going this direction. We also have a curve going top and down. Anytime you have a curve that's like this, you're going to want to apply a little bit of stretch one way into the material so that you stretch along one curve and it shrinks along the other curve. If not, you're going to have to do a lot of pulling in a lot of different directions so that we don't get any fingers all around these edges. And if this is done incorrectly, this is going to lead to premature failure all along the edges, most likely right down there, most likely right up here, where the vinyl looks like it's trying to pull back. So we don't want that to happen. There's a couple things that we're going to do with cast vinyl to prevent that from happening. One of them is going to be post-heating. This is very, very important. Anytime you're installing a cast vinyl with memory, the vinyl is going to want to return to its flat shape unless you heat it. So with LightWrap, you're going to want to heat it up to about 200 degrees. That's why most hair dryers won't work, because they can't get that hot. But we're going to want to wrap the film to the light, then we're going to go over it very slowly, and we're going to make sure that every single edge and everywhere where the film is stretched is heated to 200 degrees. That's going to basically tell the film to forget its flat shape and accept its new shape. So that deletes the memory of the film and gets it to conform long term. But if you do see pull here or here at the end of your job, it's most likely a post heat. If it's not a post heat, it's an overstretch. If it's an overstretch, you should be able to look at the air channels in the vinyl, which look like very small squares or diamonds, and you'll see that they're stretched and that pattern does not look perfect. If the pattern doesn't look perfect and those little triangles are stretched out, you may have overstretched the material. Like most top-tier cast vinyl manufacturers, our vinyl stretches to about 30%. We really like to be in the 15% range. So you can be a hero and get very aggressive with vinyl and make things look like they're wrapped for the first day, but on day 2 you might see a lot of failure. That happens, it's most likely due to overstretch. Overstretch is very easy to accommodate for when you're using a textured vinyl like carbon fiber or metal, because you'll see that the carbon fiber pattern is distorted in ways that don't make much sense. So because we're going to be using a stealth film, we're not going to have that to our advantage. However, the stealth film is non-laminated. FX film is laminated. Stealth is not laminated. Therefore, it's going to be a little thinner. It's going to be a little bit easier to conform around this light. This should be a very simple project. I'm going to show you how I would approach it with one person first. After that, I'm going to show you how much easier it is when we pull in Jose, just to give us a second set of hands for a few seconds. You'll see those few seconds make a world of difference in just this here. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how much light wrap we need for this job. Looking at this, because I have those 2 curves that I was telling you earlier, I know I'm going to want to pull my stretch this direction. So if I pull my stretch this direction, I want to make sure that I have an extra material top and bottom, because when I pull it, it's going to naturally hourglass out. And I don't want to cut it too short so that when we pull it, it doesn't have enough to cover this. I always say use a couple extra inches of material, because when you're doing your pulling, you're going to actually spread that pull out across all that material. If you're trying to use just enough, you may overstretch it without even realizing it, because if you're stretching from here to here and you only have that much stretch, that's a pretty big margin. Now, if you have all this extra material and we only have to move it ½ an inch, we're not stretching too much. So one of the features we have on LightWrap is this 2-inch grid on the back of the film. You can see each one of these lines is 2 inches, or each one of these squares, I should say. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this 20-inch wide roll, and we're going to use a 20-inch section. We're going to look at this and think about how much film we want to use. I'm going to go ahead and cut a 10-inch section out. 10 inches. Right here. Yep. Perfect. Alrighty. So there we go. We've got a 10-inch tall section of light wrap. You can see 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Look at that. Now that's pretty close. So this is getting pretty close to being a little bit too short, but I know we're going to be okay. If you look, we're way down here on this yellow. We've got plenty to wrap there, plenty to wrap here. Now, if it's just me, just one person, I'm always going to start by looking for an anchor, a hinge, a place that I can start my process. Jose in the background is getting the heat gun ready, which is awesome. If you hear that turn on soon, there's a little background noise. It's because we're going to have that on. Let's see, I'll go ahead and do that now. And now let's look. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to anchor this film. Most of the time I try to anchor it on this backlight, but because this backlight curves so hard up, I don't really like that. I really think I want to apply it here, because I have a nice upward and I can pull back. It doesn't happen often that I start on a fender and pull back, but it just goes to show you every vehicle is different. I'm gonna have to relocate for just a second so that I can make sure and get the film in the right place. You can see here we are working with the repositionability of the vinyl. Until you put pressure down on the adhesive, you have a lot of freedom to pull the vinyl how you need. And you can see, I can go ahead and remove all the backing paper. And look now, we're not going to apply this wet like you see a lot of tints. And you can see, if I was just to apply this face and this face, we have all this extra material right here. The only way to get that material to lay down is to pull as hard as we can and pull all that tension up. That's going to cause that failure I was talking about right here. So if we stopped and we applied the face here and here, now we only have one way to deal with this and this. That's to pull this way. Let's talk about the correct technique now. Correct technique, swing this out. Depending on how warm it is in your environment, I'm going to ask Jose to grab the heat gun. Depending on how warm it is, you may not have to put too much heat on it. And he's going to start heating right where he knows that stretch is going to take place. It's not going to take too much on this film. You can see it start to soften there, and now I can start to pull it. See, I'm pulling the film. I'm going to wrap it around that light. Now let's look at what we're dealing with here. Looks similar to the problem that we had earlier, but I can guarantee you this is a much, much more workable situation. How do I know that? I know that because all these tension lines are facing right here. And because we put the stretch on the vinyl this way, with a little bit of heat, we're going to be able to relax that vinyl and have it fall onto the top face of that light. Now it's important to come in here and clean up some of these little fingers. You can see I'm touching behind the vinyl. I've cleaned my hand with alcohol, so I know I'm not going to get any oils or anything behind the vinyl, but you don't have to be incredibly careful with this. Now watch, I'm going to hold up right here, and you can see we still have tension lines going back that way. Jose's going to apply some heat. Look at the vinyl. It just laid down without us doing any work. I'm not even going to use a squeegee just to prove a point that I'm not forcing the vinyl down at all now, and we've got 80% of that top face wrapped. Now I'm going to need a squeegee to finish that off because I want to help push the vinyl in the right direction. And every stroke of my squeegee is important, the direction that I take it. See these lines going this way? That means I'm going to take the squeegee and I'm going to chop it that direction. Bam. Fully tinted at the top there. Now I have a pretty sharp crease right here that I don't think I'm going to be able to work out. So I'm going to pull this off the car now, remove that hinge, pull this back to where that finger has started, and now just go for a second shot. And you can see, because we have that repositionability and those air release channels, I'm able to do that. Again, pulling the squeegee out. Accidentally creased the vinyl right there. If this were a wet application, calendar style vinyl, that crease would have probably been left in the material. But remember, we have all the advantages of a car wrap material. So we have self-healing. You can see just a little bit of heat to relax that vinyl. And there we go. Get that to lay down. Now, make sure that this is nice and applied. We got to get this bottom edge, which also, if we take a look down here, let's see, all the tension lines are shooting from here to here. We're going to get that exact same effect at the bottom when we put heat on it. First thing, see how easy the vinyl comes off the painter's tape? It's not stuck there at all, which is fantastic. I'm going to need to get to that. Bam, there we go. Free that up so I could shrink that. Now this is just the minimum amount of vinyl that I like to work with down here. I don't really have enough. I know this is gonna work, but I advise you to give yourself a little bit more vinyl to play with depending on your skill level. So maybe instead of a 10-inch top to bottom, you give yourself 12, 2 extra inches. Just having that little extra bit down here might mean the difference between a success and a failure. What you gotta do is help the tint off the light. And it's kind of warm in here, so that's gonna naturally shrink up. But if we just touch it with the heat, it's all good. There we go. At this point, the film is completely conformed to the car, and now we're in the trimming phase. I'm just checking all my edges, making sure that everything is laid down. Very happy with this. Remember the post-heating I was talking about? This is the pre-post heat. We're gonna post heat once now. Really start hitting the entire light with the heat, and I'm looking at my edges. I'm looking at all the tension and seeing if the vinyl moves at all. If it pulls back on me in some aggressive way when the heat hits it, then I may want to lift that area and focus on it again. But I don't see any movement, so I know we haven't really overstretched the vinyl much. We have almost no tension lines up top here. We have no tension lines at the bottom, which is just perfect. And you can see our stretch is pretty uniform because this finish looks perfectly uniform all the way around the light. We have no adhesive lines. There's nowhere where it's lighted out or glossed out. So that's good. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take my blade. We're gonna trim this out. One thing you wanna do with these blades, every time you start a project fresh, is you wanna snap this blade off. Make sure you have a very, very sharp blade so that it cuts cleanly through the vinyl. So most of the times you cut the paint on the vehicle, it's because you don't have a sharp blade. The blade slips. Another thing, I'm going to take this glove off. I just have better control of my blade with it off. And look for where to cut. Most vehicles, including this one, give you a nice gap between the body lines and the lights. So we usually have a very clean place we can cut on. And in this instance, it's just in the gap between the fender and the light. First, I'm not going to push hard at all. I'm just going to score the film, make sure that there's no rubber gasket or anything back there that I could cut. Don't forget, you're only working on half the vehicle. If you need to go look at the other side, go look at the other light to see what you're working with, do that. That's great. I'm going to move up here to the top.
While you're doing that, I'm gonna take a couple seconds to answer some questions right here. Premium Christian. Oh, hey. Dude, if that was wet install tint, you would have been done for 3 minutes ago.
Oh.
And we'll speed wrap this next one. He also asked, we're actually using a matte finish.
This is the LightWrap Stealth.
And then temperature of the heat gun, Stella Rock.
That particular heat gun is set to 1050. You don't have to be that aggressive. We're very comfortable with that temperature. It's what I use quite often, so I am okay with a very fast and aggressive heat. You don't have to do that by any means.
And then Christian asks again, are we going to open the liftgate for a finished cut? We could do that.
We can absolutely do that. So, now, going back to the video, Christian, we're going to answer that, but we're going to answer it for the video also, because that's a very good question. So at this point, we have trimmed out now the top and around the sides. We have a couple of options here where we're going to deal with this gap. Looking at the other side of the vehicle, it does look like that this is a nice clear lens. So if we cut right here, we're going to be able to see that clear lens through there. Not going to be too happy with that. It's not going to be quite what we expect. So we're going to free this off the vehicle. Get rid of just some of this extra so we don't mess anything up. Nothing worse than pulling on a piece of vinyl you think is detached from the vehicle and tearing whatever is still attached. Let's see here. Ooh, his keys are right up there.
I have it right here, actually.
So, free the tint off of this inner light here. Probably need to move this tape as well. There's actually a nice sharp edge that's about 2 millimeters down where the top face of this light ends, and it's going to be a perfect place for me to cut. Here it's important just to score the tint film, so I'm not putting any pressure down. It's a high focus, slow cut. Hopefully we cut through. I did not. I'd rather discover I didn't cut through and cut it again, then cut through the paint. now, since we have access to this top edge a little better than we did when it was shut, we can lock that even better. And that part of the taillight is now tinted. We're gonna take care of the one on the hatch next. All right, so now that we have one light tinted and one light not tinted, we're looking at the mid-stealth finish, which means it has a satin finish instead of gloss. It's the mid shade. However, still there's a ton of light that is let through this. As you can see here, when we have our driving lights on, it's very, very bright. I'm sure no one behind you is even going to be able to tell if this is tinted. You can see the blinkers, very visible. And I don't think I can get the brake lights to work. But as you can see, we still have major visibility of these lights. Oh, Jose's going to go hit the brake pedal, so let's see what that looks like here. Oh yeah, very, very bright. Very good. So now we're going to go ahead and take care of this one. Same thing we did earlier. I don't need nearly as much tape here because I'm not going to have to pull as much stretch on this light. As you see, I don't go take my tape all the way to this body line. Really, the tape in this instance is more useful to me in helping me tuck the tint way up into this gap here. So I think I want to carry that methodology all the way through. Not 100% necessary what I'm doing right now. However, when it helps tremendously. So why not just take a little bit of extra time, set yourself up, and give yourself every advantage, especially when they're that easy. So again, we're going to go ahead and cut the next piece of film. We already know we can go ahead and just cut 10 inches tall, and we're going to do it at the 20-inch wide. We're going to cut the exact same piece we did earlier. And now, in this light, we do not have as much of a complex curve. There is a curve going up to down, but if you look at the light from this direction, it's still very, very flat. Look how much of the face of the light can just be wrapped without stretching the tint at all. So I'm not going to need to pull any stretch or nearly as much stretch left or right. We're just going to focus on relaxing and feeding that film up. This one should be very, very easy. I'm just going to start by laying the tint on the car, putting on my glove, and here we go. So, let's see what we're going to do now. Just going to go ahead and start. I'm going to apply that. See, work it down. Not having to use any heat yet to stretch the material because there's not much stretch needed. So flip that squeeze over, use the hard side. By doing that, I have no fingers or tension down there. Same thing here. Just help it. Slides a little easier here. There we go. Applied there. Got this fun windshield wiper that I can work around. And now all we're going to do, remember, as I said here, we had to pull up if we wanted to deal with that extra tension or that extra material. Same thing here. I'm going to pull up just a little bit, but notice I haven't put any heat on it, so I'm not really stretching it up very much. I'm just making sure if I need to, we can pull out the heat. See, almost made it to the top of the light. right here fighting a little bit. It has a lot to do with this stupid windshield wiper. So in order to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to soften the film, but I'm not going to apply it while it's hot. Watch. Soften it just a little bit. We're going to let it cool down. While it's just barely warm, I'm going to help it. There we go. Okay. Now we're all the way to the back. And the full face of the light is covered. Okay, so now you've seen me wrap the second part of the light. We're going to do the same thing with before and trim this out. So we have now conformed the film to the second light on this car. This is a much easier light to do than this one since we only had the one curve to deal with. However, we still want to stay in good practice, post-heat the light, and introduce a little heat into it now because we're always watching to see how the film moves at the edges. And also, if there's anywhere where you haven't pressed down enough, a little bubble can form, and that'll give you a chance to push it back down. That is actually the casting mark in the face of the light. You probably never notice that they're on your car until you go to tint the taillights. Then you're going to be like, what is this thing, and this thing, and this thing, and this thing? They've been there the whole time. That is in the lens. So now that we've heated the vinyl, we're confident that it is not going to pull back on us. Free our blade and use that nice gap in between the body panels and the light. We're going to cut the film. Same thing up top. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I don't need to, yep, that's great. It's conforming all the way around. So on the top edge of this light, where it meets the glass, you have an incredibly sharp 90-degree turn. So you noticed I actually had a little bit of extra material at the bottom, and I folded it up under the light because I wanted that to look perfectly seamless, and because I had a nice round edge. This edge is too sharp to do that. I am cutting the film right at the edge of this light. I don't want any extra material that water might be able to get under, and I'm not confident that the material will fold on that sharp edge without maybe tearing. So the better option here is just to be confident in our post-heat and in our stretch and know that this isn't going to pull back on us and cut dead on the edge and end up with a really clean look. Since the plastic ended sharp there, the sharp edge of the tint looks OEM. And just as before, pull this off the vehicle. Over to here. It's going to be a little bit more interesting of a cut, and it'll be off camera because I'm going to open the hatch. I don't know, there must be a service mode. I'm not sure.
I bet there is.
There is in most vehicles. It's just how do you find it, you know? Pulling it around that edge so that I get a nice clean edge. Now I'm post-heating, as you see. Make sure that's not going to pull back on me. Again, we just broke our knife right when we finished that last cut, so our tip should still be very sharp. All right, that's what I'm talking about. So there we go. Now, found the button. There we go. That's how you use Universal LightWrap to tint the taillights of a Jeep Cherokee.